watching this show. My name is Denise Belil, and this is It's All Good. Lucas here for a chat. I have an amazing guest today. It's Linda Franco, and she's the CEO of Brave Healer Production. I have to look that up. Brave Healer Production. But before we go to Linda, I want to explain why I call this show It's All Good. Oh, Laura, I said Linda. Yeah, she sent me a message. Said, no, it's not Laura. Linda, it's Laura. Absolutely, you're right. My apologies. And she's laughing in the background. And then it's called It's All Good because it's my favorite cup. It says It's All Good. And it's my way of thinking. Life has to be good. If it's not good, why living your life? And so you have to look at different ways to find beauty in your life. Sometimes we get stressed out because things happen and it's upsetting, but as soon as something happened, it goes in the past because you can't change it. We can't change, like if you break a cup, if I drop that cup on my desk and everything is wet, well, I can't change the fact that I dropped the cup and the water fell everywhere. All I can do is be grateful that the computer still works, be grateful that everything else working, pick up the water and move on. So that's the same thing for everything. I know some of you might say, yeah, it's easier said than done. Yeah, sometimes. But that's why when you practice this technique, when you practice this way of living, and every time something bad happened to you, you say, okay, what's the gift in that? What do I have to learn? Where do I move on with that? And you can succeed. So I have a channel on YouTube that is Denise Belil at Denise Belil, like youtube.com/ at Denise Belil. And I have all my previous video that are stored there. And I invite you to subscribe and go watch other videos. You can search. There's search button at the bottom, at the top right, and you can search topic and all that. And whatever interests you, you can look it up. And also, if you want to have a chat with me, if you want to be on this show, or if you want to have a chat with me, you can book an appointment at tiny.cc/talk with Denise. So let's welcome Laura Franco. And as I said, she's the CEO of Brave Healer Production. And we'll find out all about what is Brave Healer Production and who's Laura. So welcome, Laura. I'm so happy to have you here. And sorry about the little mistake on the name, but I can understand that,
No worries, all the L names. I'm
Yes.
I'm happy to be here. This is my favorite topic ever, these things you talk about. So thank you so
Yeah.
much for having me.
Yeah. I don't know how many times I've been called Danielle, Debbie, it's like I
Exactly.
got it with a D. And so tell me, Laura, before we get started on the Brave Healer Production, like I imagine that you love writing.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
So how many book have you written
I
yourself?
have written my own books, solo books, 10.
Wow.
Five of those are poetry, and five of those are, I call them teaching memoirs or holistic
Love it.
health and wellness oriented.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. I love that. And that's why we connected and we liked each other because our philosophy is somewhat connected, right? Like the healing, the well-being, the take care of your mind, take care of your body. I mean, it's all together. And then what brought you? Is it because you did you write all these books before you start your Brave Healer production, or
No, not all of
I
them.
went together?
Yep, some of them were before and a
Yeah.
few of them were after. And I just started calling myself a publisher at a certain point because I thought I knew a thing or two. I could help other people,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But no, my first book was self-published back in 2012. And I had done some poetry books after that, but that was all before Brave Healer Productions.
Yeah. So tell me how all of that started. So how did you ever get started of writing books?
As a holistic physical therapist, that was my first 30-year career. I loved educating people about the holistic healing, mind, body, soul, alternative, holistic. I wanted people to understand what was possible when it comes to feeling better, right? And I knew I wanted to write and do that. I was a blogger right off the bat. I
Hmm.
blogged
As
all
soon as
about.
blog came, you were like, I'm on it.
Yes, I was. And I've been blogging since 2008. So
Yeah.
I've been a blogger for a long time.
Yeah.
But if you ask my friends and family, they would all tell you I was talking about a book, right? I would, oh, I'm going to write a book. I'm going to write it. And I never really wrote the book, didn't write the book. And then finally in 2012, I had finished a journey with my son. We trained for 6 years together when he was 5.5 to start. And we earned our black belts together
Oh,
at the
wow.
end of
That's
that
super cool.
6 year period. And I had my book. I had my book in my journals because I had been an avid journaler all my life.
Yeah.
And so many of the stories were already written from our journey together. And one day I just realized, I thought, okay, I'm going to write these stories and I'm going to share that journey, with other people. So it was pretty fun to write that book. It's called Living, Healing, and Taekwondo.
Oh, that's super cool. And I love I love that story that, a lot of parents, they put their kids into, taekwondo and, karate or whatever that is. And they drop them off and they go away, right? And I love the fact that you've decided to do it along and to move forward, with your son. And I'm sure, I'm sure, I don't know, but I imagine that it was two different classes because it was a class of little one and no, everybody together.
No, and this is the best story about it. I mean, I've been a lifelong athlete, so I was already an athlete before this time. But when he was 5, we were kind of looking for something for him to do, socialize, whatever. And we went to watch a class together, just watch, And we got out of the class and he looks up at me, imagine this little 5-year-old. And he's like, well, I said, well, what are we going to do it? Are you going to do it? He's like, well, I'll do it if you do it, Mom. That's what he said to me.
How about that?
And honestly, what was so cool was that program at the time was at our YMCA, and it was a family program.
Oh, that's super cool.
So we could sign up right alongside our kid and go through, all of those classes together.
Oh, that's great.
It was amazing. It was a very wonderful experience to have.
So now you're a black belt?
Well, so we earned our black belts together. He was 11 and a half. I was 30 something. He stopped practicing at that point, and I actually went on and earned up to a 3rd degree black belt level.
Oh, wow.
So I have trained for 14 years and stopped a little bit after COVID. So I haven't been practicing in the last few, but the martial arts is a lifestyle. It's a journey of mind, body.
Yeah.
And so it went along with everything I was doing in terms of holistic health and wellness anyway. It was a perfect marriage with what I was already doing. And I took those tenets that we follow into my life, and I continue to follow all of them.
Yeah, because I feel that I never done any of those training, but I've known people and I know the principle, and I've interviewed a few people that are teaching, either taekwondo or that type of sport. And it's so much mental more than physical, right? Like it's the way of seeing life, the way of moving into life, right? It's who you are as an individual, and then you move forward, right?
That's exactly right. I think I figured out what I was made of, and I figured out how to deal with fear. And that's huge, right? Like in terms of your life and understanding things, it's like when you take a test for your black belt, you're earning that black belt. That was a 9+ hour test. This was not for people who weren't willing to stick with it and give it their all, right? And I will be forever grateful to Master Holloway and my family there, who we did that together, and I will take that to the end of my life. It was really an amazing experience.
And you said that it helps you handle your fear, but what is the first thing we have to do to start having fun with our fear? Because I mean, people have fear and they don't see how they can overcome that. And I know anything you want to overcome, if you face it with fun and change it. Like for me, when I said, when something happened, well, look for the gift, look for, be curious. But how do you do that with fear? And have fun
so that's one of my 10 books is called How to Have Fun with Your Fear. And I wrote an entire book on that subject because for my fellow business owners, fellow authors, fellow healers who are out there doing big things in the world, trying to help people and really change the world, like you. The fear I was seeing and feeling, I felt like was purpose driven fear. So I started
Mm,
calling it purpose driven. It
yeah.
feels a lot like survival kind of fear in your body viscerally, but there was always this difference, and there was this addition of a little bit of excitement with it. There was the fact that it came cycling back over and over no matter what, like the
Mhm.
universe was saying, nope, you're not going to ignore me,
Yeah.
we're going to
Mm,
do this, right? And so I started to ask myself, well, how could I have more fun with this if I know it's something that I'm meant for?
yeah.
What if I could just feel the feeling in my body and not make that mean anything in my head, and then take some aligned action? And that became a magical process that I follow still.
Oh, that's amazing. And it makes it makes a big difference. Like for me, that's how I live my life, right? I I rarely look at things and dwell on them and be gruesome. It's like, okay, this happened. That's shitty, like that sucks. And or you're afraid of doing something, the fear, right? Like I was afraid my a story. I told that a few times, but I had a niece coming to visit, like an adult niece coming to visit Vancouver. And then, of course, first time in Vancouver, she was looking at, oh, I want to do this, want to do that. And then she gave me her itinerary. And one of them was to go on a long suspension bridge and, like tree hike and stuff. And I was like, yeah, I can go with you. Yeah, I'll do that one with you. And then it was like I was terrified of walking on that long suspension bridge, and I'm imagining Indiana Jones, where the planks are falling, and you're like holding by a cable. And so for about 2 weeks, I had 2 weeks to play with that. So for 2 weeks, I every time I would think of doing it, and I had that fear, I was like, come on, I was joking with myself. I was like, there's thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of people that walk on that bridge and they're still living. Like it's safe, it's beautiful. You're gonna look at the spacious space and the stream at the bottom, and then I play with my mind for 2 weeks. And as I was there, and the tree hiking and all that, and as I was there, I was like, hey, this is cool. So I play with my mind, to say, hey, you'll be okay. I reprogram my brain right within 2 weeks to say, okay, it's safe, you're okay, you don't have to be afraid of that. And it's fun, right? Like I was so happy when I arrived the day that we walked in, and I took a few minutes, we look at the bridge, and I looked in the surrounding, and I said, well, I'm excited to walk on it, right?
Yeah, that's fantastic, I think. And it's great when you figure out you can take the energy of fear and you can use it as fuel. It doesn't
Mhm.
have to paralyze you.
Yeah,
And it's really what we're making it mean in our head that is the problem, because that
absolutely.
builds on the next thing, and then that builds on the next thing, and pretty soon you've talked yourself out of it, or you just are
Internalize
paralyzed.
it too much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Fear is a very interesting things because like even being afraid to let's say you have to say something to your partner, right? And you're afraid of his reaction, and oh, it's not the good time. It's not a good moment. And then you hold it in, and then you build it up. It's like a pressure, right? Pressure cooker. But in reality, if you face it right away, and say, hey, it might not be a good time right now to talk about it, but I need to talk to you about it, and face it, and not make so much like building up, because I found that a lot of time people that have fears, they're they keep it so much inside, and that's like it gets bigger than it should be, right?
It definitely does. That's a great example too. And somebody asked me about my own fears, and once upon a time I kind of made the comment that it was the smaller things, like telling that person I love them for the first time,
Yeah,
or telling them something that was just like, oh, what if they reject me, what if they don't say it back,
yeah,
what
yeah,
if, right?
yeah.
We ask ourselves all those questions, and then we are afraid of the answer, so we never say it. But the faster you can you can move through that feeling and just say the words, the quicker you'll be on the other side of being able to do something about it, no matter what their response is. And I feel like there's just no time to waste anymore. I want to move forward with the things that matter.
So what are some tips that you could give people about how to learn? Like how does one learn to have fun with fear? So how would you describe that?
I think the very first step is, and of course, you're talking to somebody who loves writing and journaling,
Mm,
but you have to practice awareness, and journaling is an easy awareness tool. So, first step is just, what are they? Go ahead and make a list of those things. Move them out of here and
mhm,
somewhere where you can actually
mhm,
see where they are. See what it is. Read it to yourself. Put it in black and white out of your head, right? So you might have those tapes running in your head, the fear tapes, the different thoughts that are
yeah.
bogging you down. Get them out of you. That's an awareness process. And sometimes I would do that for myself, and I would like hold up my notebook and be like, whoa, do I really think that?
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
because you're seeing it for the first time. You're not just
Yeah.
like thinking it all the time. So that's step number one for me. But then a quick step number two is, well, how do I want to feel? What do I
Mhm.
want to think? And you know this,
When you say that,
everything,
do you mean what's the outcome that I'm looking for? Is that what you mean?
there's a million ways to say it.
Yeah,
What do I want in my life?
yeah, yeah.
Right. And if you're a believer in manifestation and the power of that positive thinking and energy, and you know that everything is attraction, you're not going to want to stay in your fear thoughts for very long, because every moment there is just another moment you're preventing yourself from getting to that better place that you want to be in. Right. So, not everyone can jump from that bad stuff over here to the
To the
bliss.
oasis, right? Like,
Yeah. So, how about you just take a deep breath and go neutral?
mhm.
And so that might be a middle step for some
Yeah.
people. Write it down, see what it is, know what you want. And if you can't jump over there in the moment, how about you practice some meditation, some stillness, some neutral zone, connection with nature? I mean, there's so many ways to move from that place a little bit further toward the good stuff.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Like, I mean, there's giant step and there's baby steps, right? And
Exactly.
that's what we coach in coaching, right? Excuse me, to like you don't have to resolve the whole situation right away. Like, what is the one thing you could do right now, right? That would change a little bit, right? Like you said, like take a piece of paper and just start writing. Write the problem, right? And then write how you think about it. Like it's like, oh, I can't write all that stuff because a lot of people, I'm not a writer. I can't. It's not about writing a novel. It's
Yeah.
just letting your thought go on a paper. And I like that idea, you know. And if it's not that, maybe record yourself or talk to your cat or your dog, let it out, because often the brain goes so fast. I found that there's too much going on, but if we externalize it, it's slower, right? And it allow us to analyze it. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. And so besides writing it, like how can people build that courage? Like how, because people say, well, I have so much shit in my life. I don't know how to deal with that.
Mm, there was a moment in my life in the beginning of this company that I'm running right now, where I met a woman who was a stranger at the time, and I had been doing the blogging and educating and talking about writing and sharing stories, talking about healing. And she came into my world with a cold messenger message. She said, "Whoa, I read something that you wrote." I had blogged that month on Mind Body Green,
Mm-hmm.
and she had read it. And she messaged me and she said, I read this and it was great. Thank you so much. I've been struggling. I'm a mom of five and I've been struggling with some depression. Do you have anything else that I could read? And at that point, I had written, I don't know, hundreds of blogs on holistic, self-care, healing, all of those wonderful topics. So I went away and I grabbed her some links that she could read. But what I realized in meeting this total stranger who was reaching out to me is that when it's not about you and your boring fears, it's about somebody else who could be helped if you would get over it and focus elsewhere. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't about my boring fears of being not good enough, not a good enough writer, my story wasn't interesting enough, I'm not good enough to do this or whatever. Oh gosh, they make me crazy now when I think about them. And it was more about her, like, well, how could I help her? Well, I could really
Mm-hmm.
help her by writing my next blog about self-care.
Yeah.
And I learned she was a mom of 5 kids, and she had had some depression, and my audience was healers and moms and people who had been through depression and done all the things, right? So I actually wrote and dedicated a blog to her anonymously. And I
Mm-hmm.
asked my audience to step up in the comments with love and
Oh,
support and
nice.
advice, and they did. And then I got to take that link and drop it in the messenger for her and welcome her into my community of
Yeah, yeah.
amazing people, right? And she felt connection, and we started to have a little bit of a relationship. But I learned only much after all of this story I'm telling you that she, at the time, had actually been planning the suicide note she'd write to her husband and 5 children. So, like, what I want to say now about that to answer your question with this story is this isn't about you.
Mm-hmm.
So that fear of not good enough, that thing
Yeah.
that's getting in your way, that is a little bit boring to me at this point, now that I know
Yeah.
what this is, right? And there are people paying attention. There are people that
Yeah.
can be helped by you and
Mm-hmm.
your voice and your message and even just your care,
Yeah.
right? So if I ever have a bad day, all I have to do is remember my friend Shirley, and just it flips.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, it's the way when I talk to people that are either coaches or looking to be coaches or even individual as a person, I always say there's a scale. That's Mrs. Mr. Super perfect. They don't need help. They're perfect, whatever. And that's the person that's in hell and really need help. And you're somewhere in between. So you can't help these people, but all these people are there that whatever you say, that little thing, you're good enough for them. You're good enough. You can support them. A word can change their life. A way of thinking can change their life. A hug can change their life. Like a kind word, or that will change the life of these people because you're a little bit better, quote unquote, but you're a little bit better than them emotionally and, with the stuff you're handling, and you could support them. These one, well, reach out. They can support you, right? So it's important, as you said. I love what you've said. Like to really have that self compassion, that understanding that however we are right here, right now, we are good enough. We're good enough. Like people say, oh, I can't fall in love when I lose 20 pounds, right? But it's like somebody's looking for you right now. They love your love handles. They love the way you look. Right now somebody's looking for you, and you're missing out on that, maybe the love of your life, because you think you're too fat or too skinny, or so I think it's really important for. And I love your message, and it goes with fear, right? Like I'm not going to be loved. That's one fear. Like the way I am, I'm not I'm not perfect enough to be loved. You are, right? And it's I think everybody should download that book. Like should buy that book, because when we talk about fear, it leads so much into having people to as we say, like to not live their life, basically, right?
Yeah, for sure. And funny enough, we're going to be publishing a book called The Life Changing Power of Self Love coming up in
Mhm.
November, pretty soon.
Yeah.
And it all comes back to that because, how we treat ourselves is how we treat everyone. It's a
Mhm.
foundation of that
Yeah.
place of love and being. And the big thing here is awareness. With awareness, we have a choice. So if you're in a practice of watching your thoughts and feeling your sensations, you will have a choice. You won't be reacting to the world. You'll be able to respond to the world,
Mhm.
no matter
Mhm.
what it is that's in front of you.
Yeah.
So that's like foundational to the fear, to everything we're talking about, is
Yeah.
that awareness practice.
Yeah. Yeah, that's super cool. Wow, I love that. I love this topic. And it's really dear to my heart too, because it all goes like I work a lot with people with their mindset, right? And and it's all in here. It's what we think, the way I always say, your thought, your word, and your action. If you change your thought, your words will be different and your action will be different. And that's all dealing with, understanding, self-love, compassion, you're good enough, like whatever people have told you in the past, that was their opinion. It's not who you are. And makes a huge difference. So, Laura, before we go, do you have any one last tip you could share with our audience?
I think, especially for people who think that they have something to share, I would encourage you. You do. You were born, so you are worthy, and your message matters. And what if that thing you're still a little afraid to share could change or even save someone's life?
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's time to be brave about that.
That's awesome. Wow, thank you so much. So I'm sure some people would like to talk to you, so they can reach you on your website, which is lauradifranco.com. Pretty simple.
Yep.
And then in there they also have a gift, which is they can find out on your website.
Yes, the Brave Healer Resources Vault for my healer entrepreneurs who are wanting to build their businesses, do their writing, publish their books. I have so many free resources for you in there about platform building and book writing and business building. So please enjoy.
Wonderful. I'm definitely going to go in there because I'm in the process of writing my own book. So it's
Fabulous.
so I'm going to go see what I can dig out of there that's going to support me into that. And then once I've written it, the draft anyway, I can talk with you and then see where we go from there.
Yes.
All right, wonderful, Laura. I'm so happy you were here today. And I stay there. I'll be right back with you.
Thank you.
Well, I hope you get some benefit out of that and download that gift. And even I think even if you're not writing a book right now, that could give you a lot of tips and tricks about your own life and how to handle that. And again, as I mentioned earlier, you can book an appointment with me if you want to have a talk with me, and also subscribe to my YouTube channel at Denise Belil on youtube.com. And I also have a gift for you. And my gift it's called the Starting Over Checklist. And sometimes our life shift, things happen in our life that are, disturbing, upsetting, and we don't know how to move on from that shift. So I invite you to download this checklist. It's bit.ly/ starting over checklist. And you'll get some resources on how to handle those changes that can be upsetting in your life. So until next time, have a wonderful week. I'll be here again next Monday with another guest. So have a good week.